Today is day 91 of the podcast, and the next illustration on the wilderness journey for Israel is that they were to possess by faith. We've just looked at how they needed to dispossess by faith and move mountains, but now it's taking possession by faith. And I want to take us to Hebrews chapter 10, starting at verse 36. For you have need of endurance, so that when you've done the will of God, you may receive what was promised. For yet in a very little while he who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one shall live by faith, and if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who shrink back to destruction, but of those who have faith to the preserving of the soul. Now verses 11, 1 and 2. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. For by it the men of old gained approval. And verse 6, without faith it's impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. So I've read this initial piece on faith, and it's about gaining what was promised. But there's a verse a little bit farther in chapter 11 that we need to really look closely at and take note that nothing was considered to be by faith during Israel's wilderness journey. Let's look at Hebrews 11 verse 27. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is unseen. By faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of the blood, so that he who destroyed the firstborn might not touch them. By faith they passed through the Red Sea as though they were passing through dry land, and the Egyptians, when they attempted it, were drowned. That's verse 29. Now verse 30. By faith the walls of Jericho fell down, and after they had been encircled 10 days. Look at verse 29 and verse 30. One is leaving Egypt, and the other is entering the promised land. Absolutely nothing is listed as happening by faith during their time and their days in the wilderness. There's an exception listed, and that's Joshua. In Joshua chapter 14, verses starting at verse 6, this is the story of the life of Caleb. Here's his response. You know the word which the Lord spoke to Moses, the man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought word back to him as it was in my heart. Nevertheless, my brethren who went up with me made the heart of the people melt with fear, but I followed the Lord my God fully. So Moses swore on that day, saying, surely the land on which your foot has trodden shall be an inheritance to you and your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God fully. And now behold, the Lord has let me live, just as he spoke, these 45 years, from the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses, when Israel walked in the wilderness, and now behold, I'm 85 years old today. He's asking for a birthday present. I'm still as strong today as I was in the day Moses sent me. As my strength was then, so my strength is now, for war and for going out and coming in. Now then, give me this hill country about which the Lord spoke on that day, for you heard on that day that the Anakim were there with great fortified cities. Perhaps the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out as the Lord has spoken. So Joshua blessed him and gave Hebron to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, for an inheritance. He had to believe for it for 45 years, but this was going to be his taking possession. He and Joshua stayed in the faith. So here's the question for you. What promise from the Lord has taken the longest for you to receive it, for it to come to pass? And are you still believing? Are you still contending for it?